Hello and welcome to another Aftermaths episode of the Primary Maths Podcast, the show where we talk all things primary maths. With me, John Cripwell.
And with me, Becky Brown.
Hello, Becky. How are you?
Oh, John. Yes, I'm very well, thank you. How are you? What have you been up to since we last spoke?
A long time no see. Since we last spoke, Becky, I've been into the kitchen and got a glass of water. I mean, I've had a lovely week off and lots of fun day trips out and things. Popped out to London, which was lovely. And it's been great. And you're coming to us live from the Isle of Wight, I believe.
Yes, John. So when this podcast goes out, of course, it will be at the end of half term. And I'm sure we will have had a beautiful week of weather. That's what's been promised anyway.
Yes, and I believe you've got something to tell us about the weather in a moment. But this is the Aftermaths episode of a half-term week, so we hope you've had a lovely week. And as usual, with these sort of holiday specials that we tend to do, we're going to be keeping it a little bit lighter, much less talk about school today, and more just about interesting stuff that we have noticed. Speaking of things that we have noticed, Becky, have you spotted any capybaras in your vicinity recently or this week? Could they have made it over to the Isle of Wight? Is that an escape route for it?
I mean, who knows? But unfortunately, the capybara has still not been found. Samba, the capybara.
We referenced this, didn't we, a few weeks ago now on the podcast, that near to you, a capybara made a great escape from the zoo. And is still at large, as far as we know.
We were talking, weren't we, about how far it might have got and the speed it travels and so on. But I mean, there has apparently been things found that have proved it's still along the riverbank somewhere. Something to do with teeth marks. I don't know. But unfortunately, unless people take photos, the zoo don't 100% know that it is the capybara, and it keeps getting sent photos of what is actually muntjac deer. I
saw a capybara at the zoo a couple of weeks ago. I don't think I'd ever necessarily seen one in real life before. They're quite large. They are quite large. They're not. I had an idea that they were sort of a large rodent, because that's how they sort of look. They look sort of vaguely rodent-y, don't they? But they are, you would know about it, wouldn't you, if you suddenly tripped over one?
Yeah. So I maybe she's just living her best life and keeping it hidden.
Hopefully. People of Hampshire, if you have recently taken in a stray cat that is a little larger than you would expect your stray cat to be and takes up most of the sofa when it lies down on it, worth just double checking again that you haven't inadvertently given home to the capybara. So weather, Becky, it has been, I'm led to believe, as we record this last Thursday, it's going to be some glorious weather this week for half term, which is unusual, isn't it?
Yes, it's lovely because it's bank holiday as well, isn't it? So we are supposed to have gorgeous weather. And as you know, I always like to discuss the weather when we first joined the podcast.
That's a very British thing to do, isn't it?
I think. Isn't it? And I have been looking at the weather a lot, multiple websites, because I like to just choose whichever one matches the weather that I'd like it to be.
Yes, yeah. I do that too. It says it's going to rain today. No. I've looked at this other website and it says it isn't going to rain, so we'll go with that one. Yeah,
and it struck me. So I am going to the Isle of Wight next week, so I was looking for Sandown, which is on the Isle of Wight. But it just struck me on that first page of weather forecast, there is tons of maths. I know we're not going to talk loads about the maths today, but just the pure amount of numbers. You've got the temperature, and of course, it's often written in Celsius and Fahrenheit. Then you've got the time.
We did an episode about Celsius and Fahrenheit, so if you'd like to know more about that, go back and have a listen.
Then you've got the times, and sometimes it tells you what time the sun came up and what time the sun's going to go down. So there's some times in 24-hour clock often. You've then got wind direction and wind speed, which is a totally other scale that they're using. And then, and this is the bit that I want to talk about a bit, it was the chance of rain.
Yes.
Or the probability of precipitation, as it's known.
It's an interesting one, this, isn't it? because you would look at it, it gives it as a percentage, doesn't it? What you might think is a 20% chance of rain, but that's not necessarily what it means, is it?
No. So I hadn't really thought about it before until I started thinking about the maths behind it. And the way it's actually calculated is by confidence multiplied by area. So 40% chance of rain doesn't mean that it's going to rain across 40% of the area, or that it will rain for 40% of the day.
Or
but
even that there's a 40% chance that it will rain in that particular area at that time.
Exactly. So if meteorologists
Easy
are
for you to say.
100% sure it will rain, and even that, of course, is based on the work of supercomputers doing lots of tiny little calculations. But if they are 100% sure it will rain, but only in 40% of the town or the area, that would be a 40% chance of rain. But equally, so if they were 50% sure it will rain across 80% of the area, that will also be a 40% chance of rain.
Yes. Yeah.
So,
which is not particularly helpful, is it?
Isn't particularly
Although
helpful.
I can kind of see why they've done, because rain can be quite localized. I don't know if you've ever been in a building where it's raining on one side of the building and not on the other. I remember when I was at school, we had these, we called them terrapin buildings. They were like temporary classrooms put in. And they were just one classroom wide. So there was windows on both sides. And I remember sitting in, I think I must have been in year 4, sitting in this terrapin building, and I could hear the rain on the roof, and I could see the rain out of one side of the building, and out of the other side of the building, it was sunshine. And it was like, I remember at the time thinking it was like being in, I think we must have been doing the Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe or something around that time. But, that where the wardrobe becomes Narnia and it's snowy, and on the other side it's, just some coats. So you can sort of understand why they can't just say, okay, in Spondon, in Derby, for instance, there's a 40% chance it's going to rain, because rain bands can be quite narrow, can't they? And Spondon, even though it's just a suburb, is still several miles, wide and whatever. But still, I'm not sure how helpful it is when you look at that data.
The only ones, I guess, that would be helpful would be if it said 100%, because then
I've never seen it say 100%. I don't think.
That was the thing I was going to say, or 0%, but it doesn't. It just says less than 5%. If it's not, I don't think they like
hedging their bets. I think that's what it's called. Hedging their bets. Just recently we've had every type of weather in the space of about 10 minutes here where I am in Derby. 1 minute it's hailing, the next minute it's bright sunshine, and then 2 minutes later there's a hurricane blowing through. So I can understand why they might want to hedge their bets, because it is, after all, British weather that we're talking about here.
Yeah, exactly. And I think, as I said, the supercomputers, there's a bit of chaos theory involved in that the tiniest little rounding done on a Monday could completely affect what the forecast might be for Friday, for example. So, but yeah, I just thought, if
having said that, Becky, I am on the BBC weather app.
Yeah.
Other weather apps are available. For my local area right now, 20 degrees C, 0% chance of rain.
Oh. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
and in fact, all day tomorrow, 0% chance of rain. Maybe this is just broken. And the same for Saturday and Sunday. We're getting no rain. They seem very confident that there is no rain, Becky.
Well,
as far as I can see, actually, right up until Sunday the 31st.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. The Met Office does agree, but it won't say 0. It just says less than 5. For the foreseeable future, there's a less than 5% chance.
Less than 5%. Yes, so I've just opened up the Met Office one, and I can see that, less than 5. And in fact, one of the hours on here where the BBC says 0%, this says 10% chance. So, that's weird, isn't it? Why can't they agree? It's just not helpful.
Because of those tiny little tweaks in rounding and things, and so many things coming together. It's quite fascinating, really, isn't it? I mean, fascinating is probably
a strong word, but yeah, I'm just having a look at the Western Sahara currently. Yeah, less than 5% chance of rain there as well, in kind of one of the driest places on Earth. So yeah, they're definitely hedging their bets, the Met Office. BBC happy to stick their neck out a little bit more.
Yes, we're going to go for it.
Yeah.
But yeah, loads of maths in the weather, which was lovely. And that's not even before we talk about tide times. I know we've talked about tide times before, but yeah, just one page on the Met Office website is like a mathematician's dream.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
nightmare.
or nightmare, yes. Yeah. Yeah, for a famously accurate subject. So my little bit for this holiday episode of the Primary Maths Podcast, I'd like to talk about a historical mathematician who was not known for being a mathematician. She was known much more for work in another sector. And this came about because I was in town with my daughter, eldest daughter, a few weeks ago, and she saw a statue. So Derby is linked with this person for a couple of reasons that I'll go into in a moment. And she saw a statue of this person. And it turns out, actually, that we have got, I think, 4 or 5 statues of her in Derby. I can't think of anybody else that we've got 4 or 5 statues of. I mean, there's a big statue of Bonnie Prince Charlie because Derby is as far as he got on his march from Scotland down to London before he decided it was all a bad idea and maybe he should turn around again. So there's a statue of him in the centre of Derby, but there's also 5 statues of this person. Now, lots of teachers will be familiar with this person because she formed and is still part of the current national curriculum. You don't have to study her, but she is one of the examples given for a famous historical person that you might study in Key Stage 1. And should I give any other clues? She's got links to Derby. She's also got links to Hampshire, actually, Becky, which I thought was nice, because she had homes in both. Well, her family had homes in both those places. She came from quite a wealthy. Sorry?
She is buried in Hampshire as well.
Is she? Oh, okay. Okay. So you've clearly worked out who we're talking about. She came from quite a wealthy family. And as I say, she is better known as, well, for her work in the field of medicine and in particular nursing. I think it's fair to say. So if anybody hasn't guessed at this point, we are, of course, talking about Florence Nightingale, the lady with the lamp, of course. And she is, of course, one of those sort of historical figures who rightly has statues all over the place. But Derby does have a bit of a claim to her. Her family had a house in Derbyshire. It's called Lea Hurst near Matlock in Derbyshire, and it's one of those sort of country houses that grew out of a farmhouse. And I think Florence's dad had it converted into a country house so that they could go and spend about 2 or 3 months of the year there. It's just got the 15 bedrooms, Becky. So you can see the sort of family that Florence came from. Not typically the sort of family where their daughter at the time would go on to work in nursing, I think it's fair to say. We are talking about a lady who grew up, well, she was born in 1820. She went on, obviously, to revolutionize the field of nursing and things. And one of the statues in Derby is outside what used to be the Derby Royal Infirmary, the DRI, which is now some apartments and buildings. But I worked there for a time. Actually, I used to walk past her statue every day on my way into the building. Yeah, well, I was at uni. I worked on the porters team at the DRI, as it was. Really, I think that place was built in 1914, so just after she died. She died in 1910. But go on.
Yeah, so I was going to say, John, so we do tend to think of her as a lady in the lamp. And in actual fact, I was doing some history revision with my eldest, and she definitely came up in the area of nursing. But what is the area in which you are talking It's not
Well,
nursing.
okay, so to understand that, we do need to understand a little bit more about what she did. So, she wanted to be a nurse. She wanted to go into that profession. Her family, I think it's fair to say, were not particularly pleased about that, but nevertheless, that's what she did. And her work took her to a place called Scutari, which was near, as was Constantinople in Turkey, to nurse soldiers who'd been injured in the war over there. And when she arrived in November 1854, the hospital conditions there were, I think it's fair to say, appalling. The National Army Museum described it as a dirty, vermin-ridden hospital lacking basic equipment and provisions, and more patients were suffering from disease in the hospital than they were from battle wounds, which isn't ideal, is it? Really,
No.
it's not really what you want. And so that's kind of the bit that we remember, I think, about Florence Nightingale is her compassion, the fact that she really wanted to help these people. But the way that she did that was through record keeping and statistics, working systematically, if you like, Becky, to record what she found. While she was there, she began to realise that soldiers were dying mainly from the disease, from the poor sanitation, from overcrowding, and basically from the systems that were supposed to be helping them, but were in fact failing them. And more soldiers were dying from that than they were from their wounds. And so she sort of went from being the lady with the lamp who came to these soldiers in their hour of need, and if we could say, she also became the lady with the graph, because it didn't stick quite as well, that one, but it should have done. She collected data, she organised it, she analysed it, she turned it, importantly, into visual arguments that people in power, when they were presented with it, could not easily ignore. The Science Museum explains that her famous polar area diagram showed the causes of soldiers' deaths over 2 years in Crimea. Each wedge represented a month, and the area showed the number of deaths. And you can have a look at this on the Science Museum website. It's really interesting. Blue showed the preventable disease, and red showed the wounds, and black showed other causes. And it told a brutal story, because the blue areas, as you can imagine, were huge, totally dominated the graph. And it was a really powerful visual representation of what was happening, and the fact that it was entirely preventable. And, it was persuasive, it was full of evidence, and it was a really good use of, I would say, maths as kind of a moral force here as well. We often think of maths as being very cold and scientific, which of course it is, but you can use it, as is often the case, to make some very powerful and persuasive arguments. So Florence Nightingale, she sort of understood that if she just gave numbers in a table, then that might not persuade people in the same way, but a diagram could really make people feel the sort of the scale of the problem. And again, that was really on the Science Museum website. They were saying that in 1850s Britain, this sort of approach to telling the story of a problem through a graph was fairly revolutionary, because most statistics at the time were still presented as numbers in tables. So, the graph that she used, there's a bit of a myth that she invented the pie chart. She didn't invent the pie chart. But she did sort of revolutionise the way that certain charts were used, and because of that, she totally changed the way that we approach hospital design and setup, and the way that diseases are treated in hospitals, and the way that sanitation is dealt with and things. And it completely changed sort of modern medicine in many ways, all through the use of charts and graphs and statistics presented well. So I thought, as we've talked a little bit about famous women in maths, and I think Florence Nightingale deserves to be mentioned, alongside some of those other luminaries as well.
Yeah, it seems so obvious, doesn't it, to display things visually for a
Well, it does
persuasive.
now, doesn't it? Because that's how we see things now. And we think back to, COVID. We got a lot of statistics, didn't we? Next slide, please.
Yeah.
We got a lot of statistics presented to us every day. And sometimes those numbers became meaningless, didn't they? When we talked about thousands, tens of thousands, millions, whatever it was, the numbers become meaningless. But if you can represent them in a graph, it really can give that visual context to what we're talking about, and help you to see the story within those numbers. And that kind of area model that Florence Nightingale used to show just how prevalent this problem was clearly really powerful. So again, it's a use for maths that maybe we don't think about enough, possibly. And when you think about the maths that went into, even before you got to the graph, to look at the numbers and collate them and work out what they mean and everything else, there was a lot going on there, wasn't there? There was a lot of maths that went into that. So, yeah, I just thought that story was fascinating and not one that's heard often enough, perhaps.
No, definitely not. I don't think I was aware of it. So, yeah, that's great. Thanks for sharing, Jon.
Florence Nightingale, the lady with the graph, as she should henceforth be known. I mean, if you do see that graffitied onto her statue in Derby, that is not my work. I'm not taking any responsibility for that. That's not me. But we have lots of listeners to this podcast, so maybe start looking at those. Yeah, I think, Becky, that's probably enough for this episode of the Primary Maths Podcast. We will be back, of course, next week, hopefully with an interview episode on Tuesday, and with another Aftermath episode next Friday.
Hope you all had a wonderful half term in the much promised sunshine, and we'll see you next time.
Yep, do, of course, leave us a review if you can. Don't forget to like and subscribe wherever you listen to us, and we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody. Take care.